Okay, good morning, students. Okay, today in this particular video, okay, we are going to learn how electricity and magnetism are actually how are they actually related to each other. And from the previous chapter, we have learned that the magnetic field, okay, produced by a magnet has some effects on a magnet and magnetic materials. Okay, so in this chapter, we are going to explore a little bit further on how current carrying conductor can actually affect the magnetic field, and what are the effects on the current carrying conductor, and how do you actually tap on all these effects. Okay, first off, you need to remember, you need to know is electric current actually produces a magnetic field. And the strength of this magnetic field, okay, is very dependent on the magnitude of the current. So it's almost directly proportional to each other. Okay, so the larger the current, the stronger the magnetic field is going to be. Okay, so how does this magnetic field look like when it's produced by a current? Okay, so here we have some diagrams. Okay, so let me bring you into the diagram itself. Okay, first off, you need to understand that cross, okay, means coming into the page, okay, going into the paper, into this plane. Okay, then dots with a circle, it actually means it's going to come out of the page itself, okay, come out of this plane. Okay, so what are we looking at when you look at these two diagrams, okay, especially this shaded region here? Okay, so we're actually looking at this portion of the wire, okay, the cross section of a wire, okay, and cross means the current is going into the paper. So how would you visualize this? Okay, let's use my pen as an example. Okay, the tip of my pen here is actually the direction that the current will go. Okay, so if I were to look at this, how would it be like in 3D? Okay, you actually expect it to be this way, where the current, okay, is actually going through the wire here. This pen is my wire. Okay, so it's going through the wire and going into the paper. Okay, on the other hand, when it's a dot, it's actually coming out. So what do I mean by this? So imagine 3D, okay, the current is coming out of the paper, so it's actually pointing out here, coming up all the way to the tip. Okay, so you notice that the tip of my pen actually looks like this dot here now. Yeah, do you see it? Okay, let's focus a little bit. Tip of my pen, okay, looks like this dot. Okay, so it's a representation of the direction for the dot and cross. So how do we actually visualize the magnetic field then? Okay, so always remember this right hand grip rule. Okay, it's a very important rule that helps us visualize how the magnetic field will be like when a current flows through a conductor. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Okay, so let's take this dot, okay, this current wire to be an example. Okay, so when the current is coming out of the page, okay, so you may look at this wire now, the current is coming out of the page. Okay, so the magnetic field, okay, how will it be like? The magnetic field will be, in this case, yeah, I'll take my right hand, okay, with my thumb pointing up towards the direction of the current, okay, with the direction of the current, okay, and my rest of my four fingers will be gripping it. So you notice that when I grip it, I'm going to grip it in this way, in an anti-clockwise manner, okay, when the current is coming out of the page. Okay, so the direction in which my hand is gripping is actually the direction in which the magnetic field is going to be. Do you notice that it's also anti-clockwise based on how we do the demonstration just now? So current coming out again, okay, grip, okay, does it look similar? Yeah. Okay, so on the other hand, the current going into the paper is in this direction, so it's going into the paper this way. So my tip of the pen is going in, okay, and when I grip it, okay, my thumb will be pointing down this time. So when my thumb is pointing down, my four fingers will grip across the pen, okay, which is actually the wire carrying the current going downwards into the paper. You notice that I'm gripping it in a clockwise manner. So that's why the direction of the magnetic field is in a clockwise manner. So this phenomenon is quite a strange thing. because it's a 3D, it's actually in a 3D effect, okay, but we have to represent it on a 2D paper. That's why it's now in a plain view of a circle. But in actual fact, it looks more like a cylinder. Okay, so this is just for one current. Okay, what about if the wire carrying the current is actually now in a loop? So when it's in a loop, it behaves in a very unique manner as well. Okay, so how does it behave? Okay, so in fact, when it's in a loop like this, on this side, when the current is coming out of the paper, you can visualize it like this. Okay, visualize it, and this side is going into the paper, so it's going to be in this clockwise manner. Okay, you notice that in between the two places where it's coming out and going into the plane itself, the direction of the magnetic field is actually the same. So when they are the same, they sort of merged with each other, giving this combined look for the magnetic field. So how would it look in a top-down view? If I were to look from top-down view, okay, I'm going to draw a very simple diagram here. Okay, so this is the dot. Okay, this side A, this side is B. Okay, so it look like this, right? Okay, so going out of the paper, okay, my pen is pointing out of the paper now. I use my right hand, I grip. Okay, so it's in the clockwise manner. So it's going to be in this direction. Okay, this direction, right? Okay, but when it's in the part where it's going into the paper, the magnetic field is in this direction. You notice that these two portions are actually in the same direction, so they sort of combine to form this combined look, where the direction is sort of like pushing through two pillars, right? Okay, so how do we actually make use of this new effect now? Okay, in fact, this new effect is very important to us because we have been looking at it for a while. Okay, so what do we mean by this? Okay, we're actually doing this or looking at this when we are using a solenoid. Okay, so what else do we need to know about this combined effect? Okay, so when the magnetic field in a flat coil is actually stronger in the region inside the coil because the fields from each other of the wire are in the same direction. Okay, on top of that, okay, it's sort of like, think of it like it's being squeezed, all the magnetic field is being squeezed in between the two wires itself. Okay, so when a single wire is coiled multiple times to form a solenoid, so imagine this particular diagram repeated a few times, you will notice that all the magnetic field start to be pushed in between the two outlets and inlets of the plane. Okay, the magnetic field will be stronger, right? Okay, so it will look like this. Okay, for a solenoid. Okay, so just now we only look at one set of coil. Now imagine we have multiple sets, so that's where all the coils actually go in. All the magnetic field actually get squeezed. Get squeezed in between the solenoid itself and get pushed out. Okay, so that would make the strength of the magnetic field stronger. So how do we represent strength of magnetic field? So let's recall very quickly. Okay, strength of magnetic field. Okay, how do we actually represent this? Okay, as long as, okay, I shall draw a strong and a weak representation of magnetic field. Strong magnetic field would be a situation where the magnetic field are very close to each other. Okay, so it's very close to each other. Well, on the other hand, for a weak magnetic field, the magnetic field lines are far apart from each other. Okay, so this is how we actually represent the strength of the magnetic field. Okay, because we can't give numbers at this point or at this juncture. Okay, so by putting the lines closer or further apart from each other, okay, we actually dare to try to represent the strength of the magnetic field itself. Okay, so when it's a solenoid like this, okay, how do we actually find out the direction of the magnetic field? Okay, so same thing, we are going to use a right hand grip rule. Okay, but take note, this time instead of the thumb being the direction of the current, the thumb is now the direction of the magnetic pole itself. Okay, while the four fingers that we have here, okay, is actually going to be represent the direction of the current in the solenoid. So I know that it's difficult to understand here, so let's use this visualization. Okay, so imagine I'm going to use a plain background so that it's easy to see. Okay, I have a solenoid here. Okay, this pen is now my solenoid. Okay, so if the current, okay, is pointing down on the face of my solenoid, okay, my four fingers will go with the direction of that current, and now my thumb is pointing to the right, and therefore my north pole is on this side of the solenoid. Okay, so for those who still don't understand this, let me re-represent it on the paper itself. So imagine a question, okay, where the solenoid is something like this. Okay, dotted lines meaning is behind, okay, but I just drawing it very quickly. Okay, so imagine this, the current on the solenoid nearest to you is in this direction, okay, downwards. Okay, so how do I represent this? Okay, so my four fingers nearest to me must represent, okay, how the direction is traveling, how the direction of the current is traveling in the solenoid itself. So now my four fingers are pointing down towards me, okay, in the representation of this solenoid that is nearest to me. Okay, this part of the solenoid that's nearest to me. So with this, my thumb sticking out, my north pole will be on my right. So that would mean that this side of the solenoid is the north pole, this side is the south pole. Okay, so I'm also going to give you some videos to help you visualize this. Okay, not to worry. Okay, let's continue with the content first. Okay. Yeah. So now that we know how to tell the direction of the north pole, okay, take note. North pole and south pole are always together. Okay, you cannot have a monopole, meaning you cannot have north pole only, or you cannot have south pole only for a magnet. So now that this coil has now combined together to become a solenoid, when the current passes through, it becomes a electromagnet. Okay, so it becomes an electromagnet. Okay, so the magnetic field lines are the resulting combination of multiple coils together. Field lines are parallel. Okay, take note, the field lines are parallel, and it shows the field. Okay, showing that the spelling here is wrong. Okay, showing that the field has the same strength along the inner part of the solenoid. Okay, and NA, which is this part over here. Okay, the NA, this part over here, behaves as a north pole, and NB behaves as a south pole. So how do we use this? We use the right hand grip rule again, but now the representation of the items based on your thumb, okay, is slightly different. In this case, when you use it for a solenoid, okay, right hand grip rule for a solenoid, thumb is the pole. Four fingers, your index finger and the others, okay, the four other fingers actually represent the direction of the current. Okay, while previously, okay, when we have a single wire, okay, with a current flowing through, the thumb represents the direction of the current, and the four fingers represent the direction of the magnetic field. Okay, so it's just an analogy to help us get the direction of the current or the direction of the field correct. Yeah. So what will happen if the current is reversed? Okay, so if you go through the whole process and try to understand again, okay, when the current is reversed, okay, like in this case, okay, I'm going to draw something similar again. Okay, so now my current is reversed. oops, okay, just now my direction of current is wrong. Now my current is reverse, sorry. Okay, now my current is reverse, it's going in from this side and coming out from this side. We will expect that the currents on the solenoid, okay, that is nearest to me would point in the upward direction. So how do I represent upward direction? So same thing. Okay, this is my solenoid, 4 fingers is going to grip the solenoid, right? But it's going to follow the direction of the current. So my 4 fingers is going this way and grip down on it. Okay, so now my thumb is here, which means the north pole is on this side and the south pole is on this side. Okay, so with that, okay, with that in mind, okay, that will also mean that the poles, okay, the magnetic poles, okay, will be reversed. Okay, the magnetic poles where? On the solenoid, okay, of the solenoid. Okay, so be very careful of the direction of the current and the direction of the poles. Okay, so next up, okay, what else do we need to know about these coils? Okay, the strength of the magnetic field can actually be increased by increasing the magnitude of the current. Okay, what do I mean by this? The stronger the current, the stronger the magnetic field will be. Okay, so this is in line with our first idea previously, where we talked about a single current carrying coil. Okay, single current carrying wire. Okay, and how the strength of the magnetic field actually is affected. Okay, so like the first point over here, the larger the current, the stronger the magnetic field. Okay, but also at the same time, okay, the strength of the magnetic field can also be increased by increasing the number of coils. Okay, as discussed just now, by increasing the number of coils of the solenoid, you actually increase the strength of the magnetic field as well. Okay, last but not least, okay, we also know that because things like the iron, magnetic materials actually helps to sort of focus, okay, the magnetic field, okay, itself. So inserting a soft iron, okay, into the coil itself will actually strengthen the electromagnet. Okay, so these are 3 ways to increase the strength of the electromagnet, and it's important. Please remember how we can make use of this. Okay, because after this, okay, what we are going to do is we are going to apply all this knowledge that you have seen so far over here, okay, into the applications. Yeah. So think about this. Okay, why does adding a soft iron core increases the magnetic field? Okay, so if you have done some research, you know that actually the soft iron core, which is the same as me saying inserting a soft iron. But why is it called a core? Because now it is the core of the solenoid. Okay, so the soft iron core causes magnetic field lines to be more concentrated. It's focusing it into the soft iron before before the effect kicks in. Okay, that's why it's stronger now. Okay, the magnetic field lines are sort of forced to be closer together. Okay, so how do we actually apply this knowledge that we have learned just now? Okay, so this chapter itself is not really a lot on the calculation, but more on the explanation. Okay, so you need to visualize what is happening. Okay, so I'm going to look at all these applications: magnetic relay, electric bell, circuit breaker. Okay, what are the other effects as well? Okay, so let's look at this one, magnetic relay. Okay, for the magnetic relay, basically, what is a magnetic relay? Think of it as a very special switch where under certain conditions, okay, it will cause another thing to happen. So in this particular magnetic relay, what is going to happen is the moment I switch on my the moment I close my switch over here, is going to cause an effect, and it's going to cause this side, the other circuit here, to be switched on. Okay, so by closing, so in this particular case, this particular situation, what am I doing? What is the cause and effect? Okay, by closing switch A. Okay, I call it switch A over here, okay, to make it easier for us to see. Okay, by closing switch A, I'm trying to switch or close switch B. Close circuit B. Okay, where is circuit B? Circuit B is over here. Okay, so by closing this switch, I'm trying to close circuit B. Okay, so it has some effect on it. Okay, of course we can modify to do other things, but this is the one that we are looking at now. Okay, so imagine this. I'm going to go through the whole explanation very quickly. Then after I'm going to fill in the blanks here. Okay, if I switch or if I close the switch A here, what will happen? You're right. Okay, the currents will now flow through the solenoid and causing it to be a electromagnet. And since there's a soft iron core here, it helps to focus the magnetic field line. So it's going to make this electromagnet stronger. But you notice that down here, at this part, this armature here is just a L lever. Okay, this L lever here is actually made of soft iron as well. So what happens when this solenoid becomes an electromagnet? You're right. Okay, the soft iron will be attracted to this electromagnet. So think about this. Since it's an L shape, this side gets attracted in. What happens to my top here? Okay, so let's do the attraction. I'm pulling in. You notice that my index finger gets pushed up. So my index fingers get pushed up. It's going to push this aperture, this contact over here, causing the two contacts to come into contact with each other. And because of that, the current in this switch circuit B can now flow through the contact and go to the other side. So this is how this magnetic relay works. Okay, so what does this do? Okay, so this magnetic relay actually uses the electromagnet in one circuit to close the other circuit. So basically it's using one circuit to control the other circuit. Yeah. Okay, the iron core magnetizes. So this is how the process works from part B onwards. Okay, the iron core magnetizes and attracts the L-shaped soft iron armature. The soft iron armature is raised about the pivot and causes the contact. Okay, and closes the contact of the second circuit. Okay, so this causes the second circuit to be switched on, right? So, how or what is the advantage of using this? Okay, basically if you look at how it's being played around, right, I only need a very small current here. A battery can control something else. A cell here. The cell here can actually control something else. So only a small current is required to start the whole thing going, right? Okay, so where is this used? Is sometimes used as a burglar alarm or even special switches. Okay, so there can be a lot of uses. Okay, so next one, electric bell. Okay, let's look at this diagram again. Okay, so always start off with the part with our power source so that it's easier to see. Yeah, so and then find out where's the switch and then work out from there. Okay, so from this diagram, this electric bell, yes, I know it's an old electric bell diagram, okay, but it still works in the normal daily life. Okay, so for this electric bell circuit, okay, let's look at the power source, which is actually the battery over here. Okay, and the switch, where's the switch? The switch is over here. So when I close the switch, when it cause it to close, okay, it now closes this circuit itself, so allowing current to flow. So when current flow from the battery, it comes out, okay, goes to the solenoid over here and over here. What happens when the current flows through a solenoid? You're right, these two solenoid becomes an electromagnet. Okay, so what happens when it's an electromagnet? You start to attract, yes, okay, you start to attract anything that is magnetic material. So if you look at these parts where it's opposite the electromagnet, you notice there's a soft iron armature. So what does it mean? Yes, okay, so now the soft iron armature would flick to the left. Okay, will flick to the left, okay, and causing the armature, which is holding the hammer, causing the hammer to hit the bell. So this causes a ring. Okay, but if you follow on the circuit, you notice that this wire, this current also is going to flow through here, pass through the armature, pass through the contact screw, and then go through the wire again and pass through the switch and go back. So when this contact here, okay, this black contact here is in contact with the contact screw, okay, or touching the contact screw, the circuit is closed, electromagnet is on. Okay, but you also notice that when the attraction for the electromagnet takes place, the hammer and the soft iron armature is going to come in contact. So what will happen to this black contact? Okay, this black contact is going to break the contact. So it will be something like this. Okay, I'm going to draw a simple diagram here. A very rough diagram. Okay, so when attraction takes place, okay, when an electromagnetic attraction takes place, it's going to pull the soft iron armature to the left. Okay, but by doing that, it actually causes the contact screw to lose contact. Okay, by losing your contact, you're actually breaking the circuit. So once it breaks the circuit, what happens? Does the current still flow? Does the electromagnet still work? Of course not. Okay, so once the electromagnet doesn't work, what will happen? Okay, the steel spring will now push the armature back to the contact screw, causing the circuit to close again, and the electromagnet starts working again. So this causes the bell to continuously contact, lose contact, contact, lose contact, and causes the ringing sound. That's why you have the ring instead of the ting. Okay, so this is the explanation. Okay, so let's look at the words now. Okay, okay, for first one, okay, once the switch, okay, is pushed and the circuit is closed, okay, the current flows through the electromagnetic coil, and the soft iron core is magnetized. So we are talking about here now. Okay, the armature attracted to the electromagnet and the hammer strikes the bell. So this soft iron armature is attracted to electromagnet and the hammer, because the hammer is attached to the soft iron armature, it hits the bell. Okay, but once you do that, okay, the forward movement of the armature breaks the contact. So this is the critical moment. Okay, this moment over here. Okay, so once it breaks the contact, the current cuts off and the soft iron core loses magnetism. Okay, once it loses magnetism, it's no longer going to attract the soft iron armature. Okay, and the spring, the steel spring, is going to force it to return to its original position. Okay, and this will cause the current to again flow. Okay, and the electromagnet being magnetized again, and the process continues itself. Okay, so that's why you have the ring instead of the ting. Okay, so that's how the electric bell actually works. Yeah. Okay, so knowing this, okay, something similar as well. Okay, we come to the circuit breaker. Okay, so for those who have forgotten, circuit breaker, we have learned it in practical electricity. Okay, it's the one where when there's a big or excess current flowing into the circuit, it will cause the current to be cut off. Okay, but once the current is cut off, okay, it breaks the circuit. Okay, not allowing the excess current to flow into the house, into the circuit itself. Okay, but it's also able to reset itself. Okay, so it's a little bit different from the fuse, but the idea is something like the fuse as well. Okay, so same thing, let's look at how it works again. Okay, let's look at two diagrams. Okay, this is a live wire. Live wire is connected to the solenoid. Okay, so when the current flows in to the solenoid, what happens? Yes, okay, it actually causes the solenoid to become magnetized. Okay, so once it's magnetized, okay, it will attract this contact over here. Do you see the contact that I'm pointing at? Okay, you attract this contact over here and causes the contact to open. Okay, but of course we don't want it to happen all the time, right? Yeah, we don't want this to happen all the time. So what is actually going to happen is these currents, okay, that is flowing through the solenoid, we are going to control the strength such that only when it reaches a certain strength, then it will be strong enough to attract this contact over here, causing it to lose contact with the other contact, okay, and therefore stopping the current from flowing through the circuit. Okay, so this is a very special condition. Okay, it only works when the current is large enough. Okay, so that's why it's designed in this way. Okay, where I control the number of coils. By controlling the number of coils, I actually controlling the strength of the electromagnet and determining whether this contact will move or not. Okay, so the details are as follows. Circuit breakers are designed to open the circuit when current exceeds a certain value. So by making use of the magnetic effect of the electric current, okay, if the current is too high, a strong magnetic force of the electromagnet separate the contacts and break the circuit. Okay, and because of that, the contact will be pivoted away from each other, okay, and losing contact, right? So once you lose contact, okay, no more current will flow through. So that's how it stops the circuit. Okay, so the spring down here, this spring, actually then keeps the contact apart, okay, making sure that it doesn't come in contact again. Okay, but we also don't want it to be a permanent problem, right? We want the circuit breaker to be able to be reset such that we can use the same circuit breaker again. So that's where the reset button comes in. To imagine this, I push the reset button towards my right. Okay, what will this do? Yes, okay, you actually force the pivot, okay, this contact, right, to be pivoted up and forcing the spring down again to be loaded, okay, and by doing that, we actually causing the contact to come in contact each other again, okay, and so that the current can flow, but we only do this once the fault is rectified. Okay, so that's how we actually make use of the magnetic effect of a solenoid. Okay, so if you have any questions, okay, do let me know when we meet again, so that we can talk about it. Okay, or I will try another method to explain to you. Okay, so now we come to the last part. Okay, for this last part, okay, it's an effect, okay, of the current carrying conductor, okay, within a magnetic field. Okay, but this magnetic field must be from an external source. So think about how we look at it, okay, later on. Okay, but let's go through some details so that you have a rough idea of what we need to do. Okay, so this is the effect. Okay, a current in a wire produces a magnetic field. Okay, this is what we know so far. Okay, and if the wire is placed between the poles of a permanent magnet, so notice I use an external magnet, right, different magnet. Okay, the two magnetic fields will interact and produces a force on the wire. So there's a very specific force. Okay, so by doing this effect, right, what do I see? Okay, when there's current going in, passing through the axle and coming out, and there's a magnet around, it actually forces this axle to move. Okay, and in what direction is it moving? Okay, it's actually going to move in, if I'm not wrong, okay, the inward direction. Okay, this axle will actually move inside. Okay, I'll show you all a video later, so click on the link available as well. Okay, so the next one, so how do we actually determine this direction in which the axle will move? Okay, so we actually do the left hand grip rule. Okay, so this is the only left hand grip rule that we are going to talk about. Okay, so left hand grip rule arranged in this manner. Okay, wow, looks difficult, right? Okay, not to worry. Okay, here is what you need to do. Okay, this is my left hand. Make a gun. Okay, and then point the middle finger at yourself. So this is the left hand grip rule. Okay, so how do you remember this? Okay, thumb is your father. Okay, the thumb is your father. Okay, the index finger is your mother. Okay, index finger is your mother. The middle finger is your child. Okay, why father, mother, child? Because a family must have father, mother, and a child. Okay, so that's how I remember. So hopefully it helps you. Father, mother makes a gun. The gun, and after that the child will come out, right? So father, mother, child. So what does father, mother, child mean? Father means the force. Mother means the magnetic field. Okay, father means the force, mother means the magnetic field, child means the current. Okay, so they are about 90 degrees to each other. Okay, so by knowing the direction of the magnetic field and the current, I can actually use the thumb to determine the direction of the force, which will also determine the direction in which the current carrying conductor will move. Okay, so let's look at this next diagram. Okay, as an example, it's easier here. Okay, so down here I have a external magnet and I have a current flowing through from A to B. Okay, so what happens in this case? Where will the wire be moving? Okay, so let's do this. Father, mother, right? So now, where's the magnetic field? Magnetic field is always from north to south. Okay, always from north to south. This is my magnetic field. So my index finger will point there, north to south, magnetic field. Okay? Where's my current? Current is from A to B, right? So it's going away from me. So my current, my middle finger has to be pointed away from me. So I have to flip up, something like this, right? So it's now pointing away from me. So now with the thumb, stick out, you notice that the thumb is actually pointing downwards. So this is more like a 3D view. Okay, so this will cause the wire to be heading downwards. Okay, the force will cause the wire to be heading downwards. Okay, so have I answered the question? Let's look at the question again. Okay, what is the direction of the force that acts on the wire in the first scenario? Okay, the force is acting downwards. Okay, so the force is acting downwards. Okay, so what happens if the current is reversed? So what do I mean by reverse? North. Okay, north pole is here. Okay, from B, the current is now flowing from B to A. South pole is here. Okay, so now the north and south pole is the same, right? Direction, magnetic field is still the same, but the current is now pointing towards me. Okay, from B to A, so it's something like this now. By sticking out the thumb, I will notice that the force is actually pointing upwards. So in this second question, the answer is actually the force will be reversed. Okay, and you'll be pointing upwards. Okay, so you need to know how to determine the direction of the force, or if I know the direction of the force, how do I determine the direction of the current or the magnetic field? Okay, so where do we actually use this? Okay, we actually use this, right, in a very daily manner. Okay, so we are actually using this concept in our electric motors. I bet you didn't know about it, right? Okay, so the usage is in the electric motor. You can actually look at the link that is supplied to understand a little bit more. Okay, a little bit of extension. Okay, and at the same time, okay, I would like you all to go and explore a little bit more on how we apply all this, okay, by practicing in your workbook as well. Okay, so next one. Okay, so now we know how to look at or how to determine the direction of the force. Once we know the direction of the current and the magnetic field, external magnetic field. Okay, the next big question would be why? Okay, why does a current carrying conductor actually experience a force when placed in a magnetic field? Okay, you can read more about this inside your textbook as well. I'm going to do a very brief explanation about it. Okay, so first of all, we know that when current is flowing through a wire, for example, it creates a magnetic field around it. Okay, but we also know that a magnet has its own magnetic field. So when I put these two together, okay, it will be something like this. But we know previously that this cannot happen. Why? Because the magnetic field cannot cross each other. Okay, so by doing this, when I force the wire, current carrying wire, okay, in the external magnetic field, okay, this actually happens. It forces the magnetic field of the magnet to wrap around the wire itself, the magnetic field of the wire. Okay, so because of these two interactions, it forces the magnetic field to be squeezed or concentrated on one side, and thereby causing a stronger field here. And since down here there's a stronger field, down here there's a weaker field, what will happen? That's right, okay, there will be repulsion and forcing the wire to go downwards. Okay, so let's check the direction whether it's correct using our Fleming left hand. We call it the Fleming left hand, okay, this gun thing, okay? So, north to south, right? North to south, okay, from left to right. Current is now pointing into the paper. So my current, my middle finger has to point into the paper. I stick out my thumb. Yes, okay, the direction of the force is actually downwards. So it's actually correct. Okay, so it works, okay? The combination of the fields due to the current in the wire causes a force. And when there is a stronger force on one side of the wire, since two fields are acting in the same direction, okay, it thus combine to give a stronger field. Okay, on the other side, since the direction of the field are opposing each other, right? Because down here, if you look at the direction of the field here, okay, it's going in a clockwise manner here, right? So at the bottom, this is going clockwise, this is going the opposite way. Okay, because they are going opposite to each other, okay, they combine to give a weaker field. Okay, think of it like cancelling out each other, but we don't use the word cancel. Okay, so because of this, right, a force then acts on the wire from the top, from the stronger field to the weaker field. Okay, in a downward direction in this case. Okay, so this is how we actually explain it. Okay, but what is more important is actually getting to know how to determine the direction of your force by knowing the currents and magnetic field. Okay, yep, so with this, right, we have actually ended this particular chapter. Any questions, please let me know once we see each other. Okay, for clarification, I'm going to put up some more links on this video so that you can actually make use of it to find out more, okay, and try to understand better. Okay, so see you all again when school